Papa, are you my father? The Duke froze. 5 years later, the boy stopped his carriage. Imagine seeing a child you never knew existed, standing in front of your carriage, asking the question that changes everything. Would the Duke face the past and take responsibility or walk away again? Stay with me to find out and subscribe for more stories like this. The street was loud with wheels and hooves. London always sounded like this near the richer squares. Iron rims on stone, horses snorting, men shouting, and the sharp snap of a whip that never seemed to land but still made people jump. A black carriage rolled forward like it owned the road. It did in a way. The crest painted on its door was gold and proud. People stepped aside without thinking, as if the carriage had a wide, invisible shadow, and no one wanted to stand in it. Inside sat Julian Ashford, Duke of Wexford. He was 30 now, tall, clean-faced, and dressed like winter itself. Dark coat, dark gloves, eyes that learned long ago how to look calm even when the world turned strange. He was coming from a meeting he did not enjoy. He was heading to another one he did not want. His life was full of duties that sounded noble and felt heavy. The carriage slowed near a crowded corner. A flower girl darted past. A man selling chestnuts waved his hands like a band leader. A dog yelped and vanished between boots. Then a small figure stepped out. A boy. He was thin, with hair too long at the front and shoes that had seen too many puddles. His coat was second-hand and too big in the shoulders, like it once belonged to someone who grew up faster than he did. He walked straight into the path of the Duke's carriage. "Stop!" a driver yelled. The horse tossed its head. The carriage jolted as the driver pulled the reins hard. The boy did not move. He lifted both hands, not like a thief, but like someone trying to keep the world from pushing him back. Julian felt the stop in his bones. He leaned forward, annoyed at first. Then he looked closer. The boy's face was pale from the cold, but his eyes were bright and steady. Not rude, not wild, just set on one thing. The carriage door latch clicked. Julian's guard reached for it. "Wait," Julian said, surprising even himself. The guard paused. Outside, people gathered. A few were already whispering, as if the street had decided this moment was worth keeping. The boy stepped closer to the carriage window, so close his breath made fog on the glass. He knocked once, softly. Julian stared at him through the pane, like someone staring at a memory he did not ask for. The boy's lips moved. Then he spoke clearly, loud enough for the driver, the guard, and everyone with ears. "Papa, are you my father?" The street went quiet in a strange way. Not fully quiet. London never became silent, but it felt like the sounds moved far away for a second. Julian's chest tightened. He did not answer right away. Not because he wanted to be cruel, because the question hit him like cold water. Papa. No one called him that. No one had ever thought of him that way. Julian's hand lifted, slow, and he pushed the window latch. The glass slid down. Now there was nothing between them but air. The boy swallowed. His chin trembled once, then steadied again. "My mom said I shouldn't," the boy said, voice smaller now. "She said it only brings trouble. But I saw your crest. I saw it on a ring. And His words broke, then he forced them back into place. "I just need to know," he finished. Julian looked at the boy's face. The shape of his nose, the line of his mouth, the way his brows pulled together like he was trying hard not to cry. It was not just the boy's courage that shook Julian. It was something worse, something familiar. Julian felt his own past standing up inside him, like it had been asleep and woke angry. "Who is your mother?" Julian asked, voice low. The boy glanced to the side. On the sidewalk, half hidden behind a post, stood a woman. She was not dressed like the rich. Her gloves were worn. Her bonnet was plain. But she held herself straight, like pride was the last warm thing she owned. When her eyes met Julian's, the world stopped again. Julian knew that face. He had not seen it in 5 years, but he had never truly forgotten it. "Eliza," he whispered. The woman flinched at her name, like it hurt to hear it from him. The boy turned, saw her, and his shoulders dropped. He looked guilty, like a soldier caught running from his post. "Eliza," Julian said again, louder now, as if saying it could pull the past back into order. Her eyes shone with anger and fear together. And then, Before Julian could step out or speak more, Eliza Hart walked forward and took her son's hand. "We're leaving," she said. The boy looked up at her, then back at Julian. "But Mum—" "No," she cut in, firm but shaking. "Not here." Julian's guard reached out, ready to move them away. Julian lifted a hand again. "Don't." His voice was a command, and the guard froze. Julian stepped out of the carriage. He stood on the street in polished boots like he belonged to another world. Eliza stood in worn shoes like she had been fighting this city every day. Their eyes locked. "You shouldn't have come," Eliza said. "You shouldn't have a son," Julian replied before he could stop himself. It was a harsh thing. The moment the words left him, he hated them. Eliza's face changed. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. "My son is not a mistake," she said. "He is not your shame to hide." Julian looked at the boy again. The boy stared back with a brave face, but tears were gathering anyway. Julian's throat tightened. "What is his name?" Julian asked. Eliza hesitated. Then she said it, like the truth was a stone she had carried too long. "Thomas," she answered. "But I call him Tom." Julian's breath caught. Thomas, his father's name. He did not know if that was kindness or a wound. Eliza turned as if to pull Tom away. Julian spoke fast, voice rough. "Wait, please." Eliza stopped, but only for a second. "I begged once," she said. "I won't beg again." Julian stared at her, and the street stared too. And in that moment, 5 years ago, came rushing back. Eliza Hart had never planned to speak to a duke. 5 years earlier, she was 21 and working as a seamstress in a quiet house in Mayfair. She stitched dresses for women who complained about ribbons while Eliza's fingers bled into the cloth. She was not bitter, not first. She had small dreams. A clean room, a warm coat, maybe, one day, a shop with her name on the sign. Then the Duke of Wexford returned to town. Julian Ashford was younger then, still learning how to carry his title without looking like it was choking him. He came to the house where Eliza worked because his aunt lived there and had a habit of collecting people the way others collected books. She collected musicians, poets, and young women who could sew. Julian did not look like a storybook hero when Eliza first saw him. He looked tired. He stood near the window, watching rain fall on the street, hands behind his back. His hair was dark. His jaw was sharp. His eyes were the kind that held too many thoughts. Eliza tried not to stare. She told herself she was only noticing because rich people always look strange up close, like they belong behind glass. But then Julian turned and saw her. He nodded once, polite. Not the lazy nod of a man who thought she was nothing. Just polite. And that was the first crack in Eliza's careful walls. Over the next weeks, Julian returned often. He spoke with his aunt, walked in the parlor, and sometimes lingered near the sewing room as if he had forgotten where he meant to be. One evening, Eliza stayed late to finish a sleeve. Her candle was low. The house was quiet. Julian appeared at the door. He did not step in. He just stood there, as if the doorway was a line he did not want to cross. "You're still working," he said. Eliza lowered her needle. "The sleeve won't sew itself, Your Grace." He flinched at the title. "You don't have to call me that." Eliza blinked. "Then what should I call you?" He hesitated. "Julian." It sounded wrong in her mouth. Too close. Too dangerous. Eliza looked back down at her stitches. "I don't think that is wise." Julian's mouth tightened like he agreed and hated it. "You're right," he said. "Nothing about me is wise." Eliza glanced up again. "That can't be true." Julian laughed once, short and not happy. "You don't know me." Eliza held his gaze, surprised by her own courage. "Maybe you don't know you either." The words hung between them. Julian stared like no one had ever spoken to him that way. Then he stepped back and left. Eliza's heart beat hard for an hour after. She told herself it would end there, that she would go back to being invisible. But life had other plans. Julian started finding reasons to speak with her. He asked about fabric, about stitches, about how long it took to make a dress. It was silly, the questions. He could have asked a servant or a tailor. But he asked Eliza, and Eliza answered, not because she wanted trouble, because when Julian looked at her, he looked like a man who was drowning quietly and did not know how to call for help. One night, Julian arrived in the sewing room again. It was later than proper. Eliza stood, nervous. Your Grace, you shouldn't. Don't, he said, voice rough. Please don't make me feel worse. Eliza swallowed. Then leave. Julian's eyes flashed. I tried. He took a step forward, then stopped, like he was fighting himself. Eliza's hand shook. Why are you here? Julian's voice went soft. Because with you, I can breathe. Those words should have sent her running. Instead, they rooted her in place. Eliza's life was small, but it was honest. Julian's life was big, full of rules, and people who smiled while sharpening knives. He kept coming back to her because she did not want anything from him. And that, in the end, was what made him want her more. The first time he kissed her, it was sudden and gentle. Eliza pulled away fast, eyes wide. This is madness. Julian's forehead pressed to hers. I know. Eliza shook her head, scared. You'll ruin me. Julian's voice broke a little. I might already be ruined. Eliza's eyes stung with tears she did not understand. She should have pushed him away, but she was lonely too. And for a little while, they pretended the world did not exist. Until it did. The Dowager Duchess, Julian's mother, found out. She did not storm and screaming like a play villain. She did something worse. She smiled. She invited Eliza to tea. Eliza arrived shaking. The tea room smelled of roses and power. The Dowager sat straight, her gray hair perfect. Her eyes were calm as ice. You are pretty, the Dowager said, as if that was a charge. Eliza stood stiff. I am here because you asked. Yes, the Dowager said. I asked because you have forgotten your place. Eliza's cheeks burned. I never. You did, the Dowager cut in. You touched what is not yours. Eliza's stomach turned. Julian is not an object. The Dowager's eyes narrowed. You will not use his name so freely. Eliza's hands clenched. Then tell him to stop coming. The Dowager leaned forward. I'm telling you. Eliza swallowed. What do you want? The Dowager's voice was low and sharp. You will leave London. Tonight. You will disappear. And you will not bother my son again. Eliza's throat tightened. He will look for me. The Dowager smiled, slow. No, he won't. Eliza stared. What? The Dowager set her teacup down with a soft click. Because he will believe you left by choice. Eliza's chest tightened. That's a lie. Yes, the Dowager said simply. And lies are useful. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. You can't. I can, the Dowager said. And I will. Eliza's hands went to her belly without thinking. The Dowager's gaze followed the motion. Her smile vanished. So the Dowager said, It has begun. Eliza froze. The Dowager's voice turned like steel. You will end it, or you will leave. Those are your choices. Eliza's world spun. She whispered, He deserves to know. The Dowager's eyes were hard. He deserves a wife of rank and a line that is clean. Not a scandal. Eliza's voice shook. I'm not dirt. The Dowager stood. To this family, you are. Eliza stumbled out of that room, heart pounding. She found Julian that night in the hall, face worried, like he already sensed something was wrong. Eliza, he said, stepping toward her. What happened? Eliza shook her head, tears falling. I can't. Julian grabbed her hands. Tell me. Eliza wanted to. She wanted to scream the truth. She wanted to cling to him and beg him to choose her. But the Dowager's words echoed. Lies are useful. Eliza knew the Dowager would crush her. And crush the baby too. Eliza forced herself to speak the safest lie she could. I can't do this anymore, Eliza said, voice breaking. It was a mistake. Julian's face went pale. No. Eliza nodded fast, desperate. Yes. Please let me go. Julian's eyes flashed with pain and anger. He said the words that would haunt him for years. Then leave, he snapped. If you want to throw this away, leave. Eliza's breath caught. She whispered, Julian. He looked away like it hurt to look at her. Go. And Eliza went. Eliza's new life was not romantic. It was cold. It was a narrow room above a loud shop. It was waking up with cramped hands. It was counting coins and praying they would stretch. She found work where she could. More sewing, more mending, sometimes washing clothes. When her belly grew, people looked at her with sharp eyes. Eliza learned to keep her chin high and her story short. Her story became simple. Her husband died. It was easier than the truth. When Tom was born, he came out loud and angry, like he was already arguing with the world. Eliza cried with relief. He had dark hair. His eyes were a strange gray-blue that did not match hers. She didn't need a mirror to know where those eyes came from. She named him Thomas, after Julian's father, not as a gift to Julian, but as a promise to herself. Tom would have a name that belonged to something bigger than poverty, even if his life stayed small. Tom grew fast. At 3, he asked questions like a storm. At 4, he followed Eliza everywhere, fingers always gripping her sleeve as if the world might steal her. At 5, he started noticing other boys with fathers. He saw men lift their children on his shoulders at fairs. He saw fathers scold and then smile. He saw a man hand his son a sweet and ruffle his hair. Tom watched all of it. Then he started asking, "Where's my papa?" Tom asked one morning while Eliza tied his scarf. Eliza's hands paused. She smiled the way she had trained herself to. "Some children don't have papas." Tom frowned. "But I do. Everyone has one." Eliza swallowed. "He's not here." Tom's eyes narrowed like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Did he go away?" Eliza nodded once. "Yes." Tom studied her face. "Did you send him away?" The question hit like a slap. Eliza forced her voice calm. "No, Tom." Tom tilted his head. "Then why didn't he come back?" Eliza's throat tightened. "Sometimes people make wrong choices." Tom went quiet. That night, Eliza sat by the window, sewing by a weak candle. The city outside was loud, but her room felt like a small boat on a rough sea. She pulled out something she kept hidden under a loose floorboard. A ring. It was plain gold, but inside was a tiny crest, worn from time. Julian's crest. Eliza had found it on the sewing room floor the night she left. She kept it like proof that she hadn't dreamed the whole thing. Tom had seen it once by accident. He asked, "Is that Papa's?" Eliza had grabbed it too fast. "No." Tom's eyes had widened. "You lied." Eliza had felt tears rise, quick and hot. "Tom, please." Tom didn't press then, but the question stayed inside him like a seed. Over the next months, London seemed to whisper Julian's name everywhere. There were newspapers with his face sketched in ink. There were talky women in shops saying, "The Duke of Wexford will marry Lady Clarissa in spring." There were posters for charity events where his name sat at the top. Tom couldn't read well yet, but he could recognize the crest. One afternoon, they passed a grand building. A carriage stood outside. On the door was the same crest as the ring. Tom stopped walking. "Mom," he whispered. Eliza's heart dropped. "No," she said fast, pulling him along. "Don't look." Tom jerked away. "That's it," he said. "That's the mark." Eliza bent down, hands tight on his shoulders. "Tom, listen. You must never." Tom's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" he cried. "Why can't I know?" Eliza's own tears rose. She blinked them back. "Because it will hurt," she said. Tom's voice shook. "It already hurts." Eliza froze. She had been trying so hard to protect him that she forgot children still feel the sharp edges of secrets. That night, Tom lay in bed awake. Eliza watched him, feeling helpless. In the morning, Tom was quiet. Too quiet. He held her hand on the way to the market, but his grip was different. Less like fear, more like decision. They turned onto a busier street. Then Tom saw it. A black carriage, rolling slow, crest shining in the weak sun. Tom's whole body tensed. "Eliza," a woman nearby whispered, recognizing the Duke's crest with excitement. Eliza's blood went cold. Tom let go of her hand. Eliza reached for him. "Tom!" He ran, straight into the road. Julian stepped down from the carriage like the street was a stage, and he didn't know his lines. His guard looked tense. People gathered closer. London loved a scene, especially when rich blood was involved. Eliza grabbed Tom's hand, trying to pull him away. Tom twisted, eyes wet. "I just asked." Eliza's voice shook. "You shouldn't have." Julian's eyes stayed on Tom. Eliza saw it. The moment Julian stopped seeing a random boy and started seeing something else. Recognition. Fear. Regret. Julian spoke again, slower this time. "Eliza, is he mine?" Eliza's jaw tightened. "You don't get to ask that like it's a polite question." Julian's face flinched like she slapped him with words. Answer me. Eliza laughed once, bitter. Now you want answers? You told me to leave. Julian's voice went rough. I was angry. You said it was a mistake. Eliza's eyes burned. Because your mother. She stopped. Julian's eyes narrowed. My mother. Eliza shook her head fast, like she could shake the past away. It doesn't matter. Julian took a step closer. It matters. Tom looked between them, confused, frightened, and still brave. Mom, Tom whispered. Is he? Eliza's heart cracked. She knelt, pulling Tom close. Tom, go stand by Mrs. Rowe. Mrs. Rowe was Eliza's neighbor, a kind woman with a sharp tongue. She pushed forward now, arms open. Tom hesitated, then went, still staring at Julian. Eliza stood again, facing Julian without her son between them. Yes, Eliza said, voice low. He's yours. The street gasped like it was one body. Julian went very still. His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes turned glassy, like he was looking at 5 years of life he never lived. Julian's voice came out thin. Why didn't you tell me? Eliza's laugh broke into a sob she hated. I tried. Julian stepped closer again. Eliza, I would have. Eliza cut him off. Would you? Or would you have chosen your title the way everyone said you would? Julian's face tightened. Eliza pushed on, anger pouring out because she had carried it too long. I left with nothing, she said. I worked until my hands were raw. I skipped meals so he could eat. I watched him ask for father I couldn't give him. And you? Her voice shook. You rode in carriages and planned weddings, she finished. Julian's eyes flashed with pain. You think I was happy? Eliza's eyes narrowed. I don't care. Julian's jaw clenched. Then his gaze softened. He looked past Eliza to Tom. Tom stood by Mrs. Rowe, cheeks wet, but eyes locked on Julian like a lighthouse. Julian whispered Thomas. Tom jumped, hearing his name in the Duke's mouth. Julian looked back at Eliza. He's named for my father. Eliza's voice went quiet. Yes. Julian swallowed hard. Eliza, I didn't know. Eliza stared at him, tired down to her bones. Not knowing doesn't erase the harm. Julian nodded once, like he accepted that. Come with me, he said. Both of you. Let's talk somewhere warm. Let me. Eliza shook her head fast. No, I won't be hidden in your house, like a problem to manage. Julian's voice turned urgent. I'm not trying to hide you. Eliza stepped back. You can't fix 5 years with a warm room. Tom's small voice broke in. Mom, I'm cold. Eliza's heart twisted. Mrs. Rowe cleared her throat. And the boys' shoes have holes, Your Grace, if you've got eyes. Julian looked down. He had eyes. He saw Tom's worn shoes, the thin coat, the 2 small gloves, the way Eliza's hands had tiny scars from needles and harsh soap. Julian's face changed, not to pity, to something heavier, responsibility. He turned to his guard. Clear the crowd, Julian said, calm but firm. Now! The guard moved fast, pushing people back with a practiced glare. Julian stepped closer to Eliza again, lowering his voice so only she could hear. I can't undo it, he said, but I can stop it from getting worse. Eliza's throat tightened. I don't want your charity. It isn't charity, Julian said, eyes steady. It's my duty, and it's my son. Eliza flinched at the word son. Julian continued, voice softer now. Let me take him to a doctor. Let me make sure he's well. After that, you could decide what you want. Eliza wanted to scream no, but Tom swayed slightly on his feet, exhausted from the cold and the emotional storm. Eliza's pride was strong. Her love for Tom was stronger. Eliza nodded once, sharp. One visit, she said, and then we leave. Julian held her gaze. All right. And just like that, the Duke of Wexford walked beside a seamstress and her son, as if the world had changed. Maybe it had. The doctor's office smelled of herbs and old paper. Tom sat on the edge of a chair, swinging his feet. Julian sat nearby, stiff like a man trying to hold still in a storm. Eliza stood behind Tom, hands on his shoulders. The doctor checked Tom's chest and asked him to cough. Tom did, then wiped his nose on his sleeve. The doctor frowned. A cold, he said. Maybe more if it's left too long. He needs warmth and rest. Julian's jaw tightened. He will have it. Eliza's eyes narrowed. Don't make promises you can't keep. Julian looked at her. I can keep this one. After they left, Julian took them to a small private room in an inn he owned, far from the worst streets and far from gossip, at least for now. Food arrived. Hot soup, bread, a small sweet for Tom. Tom ate like he didn't trust the food would stay. Julian watched him, silent. Then Tom finally looked up and asked the question again, quieter now. Are you my father? Julian's breath caught. He glanced at Eliza, as if asking permission. Eliza's face was tight, but she nodded once. Julian leaned forward. Yes, he said. Tom's eyes widened. He didn't cheer. He didn't laugh. He just stared as if he had found a missing piece and didn't know where it fit yet. Why weren't you there? Tom asked. Julian's throat tightened. He didn't lie. I made a mistake, Julian said, and I'll let other people decide things for me. I thought your mother left because she didn't want me. I believed it because it hurt less than thinking I'd failed her. Eliza's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. Tom's small voice trembled. Did you want me? Julian's eyes went wet. Yes, Julian said. I would have wanted you. Tom swallowed hard. Then will you want me now? Julian nodded. If you'll let me. Tom stared at him for a long time. Then, very slowly, Tom slid off his chair and walked over to Julian. He stood close enough to touch, but didn't. Tom's voice was tiny. I don't know how. Julian's voice broke. Neither do I. Tom lifted his hand and placed it on Julian's sleeve. It was not a hug. Not yet. But it was something. Eliza turned away, tears finally falling. She hated that she still cared. She hated that her heart was still soft enough to hurt. Julian noticed her tears. Eliza, he said gently, I'm sorry. Eliza's voice came out rough. Sorry doesn't feed him. Julian nodded. I know. Eliza wiped her face and faced him again, eyes fierce. If you hurt him, I will disappear so fast you'll never find us. Julian held her gaze. Fair. Eliza blinked. Fair. Julian's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Yes, fair. There was a knock at the door. A servant stepped in, nervous. Your Grace, your mother is here. Eliza's body went stiff. Julian's eyes hardened. Let her in. The Dowager entered like she still owned the air. Her eyes flicked to Tom, then to Eliza, then to Julian. For a moment, something crossed her face, shock, anger, and then control, snapping back into place. This is improper, she said. Julian stood. So is what you did. The Dowager's eyes narrowed. I protected you. Julian's voice was calm, but it carried weight. You protected the family name, not me. The Dowager's gaze shifted to Tom again. That child will ruin you. Julian stepped in front of Tom without thinking. Eliza's breath caught at the movement. Julian spoke clearly. He is my son. He is not a ruin. He is a truth. The Dowager's face tightened. Your marriage. Julian cut her off. There will be no marriage to Lady Clarissa. The Dowager's eyes widened. You cannot. I can, Julian said, voice firm. And I will. Eliza's stomach dropped. She hadn't asked for that. She hadn't wanted Julian to burn his life down. Julian looked at Eliza, softer now. This is my choice, not yours. Eliza swallowed. Your world will punish him. Julian glanced at Tom. Tom was watching everything, quiet as a mouse. Julian's jaw tightened. Then I will fight my world. The Dowager's voice sharpened. You will regret this. Julian's gaze was steady. I regret what I already did. Silence filled the room. The Dowager looked at Tom. Tom stared back, unafraid now, because Eliza was there and Julian was standing like a wall. The Dowager's lips pressed tight. Then she turned and left, her skirts whispering like a warning. When the door closed, Eliza's knees felt weak. Julian sat back down slowly. Tom looked up at Eliza. Mom, he whispered. Can we stay? Eliza's heart cracked again. She crouched and took Tom's face in her hands. Do you want to? Tom nodded. I want to know. Eliza looked at Julian. Julian didn't beg. He didn't grab. He didn't demand. He just waited, eyes full of regret and hope. Eliza took a shaky breath. We'll stay for now, she said. For Tom. Julian nodded once. And for you, he said quietly. If you ever want that. Eliza's eyes stung. She didn't answer. Not because she didn't feel anything, because feelings weren't enough. Not after 5 years. Tom climbed back onto his chair and finished his soup. Then, with the simple boldness of children, he slid his small hand into Julian's. Julian's fingers closed around it like it was the most fragile thing in the world. Outside, London kept moving. But inside that small room, something new began, slow, messy, and real. Not a perfect ending, a true one. If you made it to the end of Papa, Are You My Father? The Duke froze. 5 years later, the boy stopped his carriage. Tell me, would you have forgiven him, or would you have walked away for good? Drop your answer in the comments, because I read them all. And if you love emotional, twist-filled historical stories like this, subscribe for more stories like this.